Welcome to Buddhism for Everybody. My name is Tim. Today my topic is something called ego clinging. Ego clinging is an idea that I've seen referred to in other Buddhist teachings, but it's not normally given that label. And that label does merit a lot of discussion and understanding because in a lot of ways it's the key to understanding suffering and why it is that as beings we consistently and habitually engage in the causes of suffering. This is also a good bridge topic to learn more about how thinking works and also the different classes of beings. In Western psychology, there is the term ego, which Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines as, quote, the self or one's sense of self-worth contrasted with another self or the world. It can also refer to a psychoanalytic concept of the conscious mediator between the person and the reality. Now, in Buddhism, the word ego has a different definition and specific use, at least according to how I was taught. In Buddhist teachings, the term ego refers to a self-entity that is believed to truly exist in a permanent way. And I want to stress, a permanent way. Some synonyms for this that are often used would be a self, a me, a soul, an I. This ego is defined as a self-entity that a being like you and I, believes truly exists in some permanent way. It is the me or I being referred to as oneself, or the you, that is another being. Now this is the same I from the past, and will be the same I in the future. This I is the permanent being that exists and embodies all the qualities representing the self. But we don't actually exist as permanent beings. We are always changing, just as our phenomena is always changing, and just as everything in our relative truth experiences are changing. This is because thinking and all phenomena are impermanent. But we can cling to the belief that there is some entity we identify as myself or yourself, a soul that does truly and permanently exist. We can habitually believe in this so strongly that we never question its truth. Holding this belief is called ego clinging. It is when thinking clings to the illusory, permanent self, the fabricated ideas of who we believe ourselves to be, even though that being is changing in every moment and doesn't have permanent qualities. But thinking can believe it does exist like this, and the more this belief is repeated, the stronger it becomes. Although such a being doesn't exist, the clinging to that idea, the strong belief about oneself, is a very real experience. It is a habit of thinking that all sentient beings have, and it is what blocks us from becoming enlightened beings. This is our obstacle. The main difference in ego clinging from one being to the next is how strongly it is engaged in. Generally speaking, the more of this ego clinging there is, the more suffering it will create. And the less one clings to ego, the more happiness can be experienced. This is because when ego clinging is the main focus of thinking, the obsession, it leads to misplaced fear. This fear is rooted in a need to protect and maintain, perhaps even glorify this illusory ego. This habit becomes so strong that the mere thought that this self is illusory becomes very frightening. If that isn't me, then what is? Do I really exist? Strong ego clinging automatically puts us in competition with every other being. The belief is that all our happiness exists out there. It is in objects, experiences, and relationships. These sources of happiness are believed to be in a limited supply, meaning there isn't enough to go around, and everyone else is trying just as hard to gather and hold them as we are. Everything in one's outer environment can be seen as a challenge or a threat, as something dangerous. This is where thinking will engage in the 5 negative qualities. I will definitely talk a lot about the negative thinking qualities, these 5 categories. Now, of course, Buddha taught that the cause of happiness is not external like this. The cause is one's own positive thinking. But ego clinging blinds us to this truth, as it blinds us to all the 4 noble truths, because this mental clinging consumes so much of our bandwidth, our capacity, that it consumes most of our awareness, even if we don't know that's happening. When external objects and experiences finally fail to bring us happiness, we blame this on all kinds of people and events, not seeing that these objects were never actually a cause, only a temporary condition. Within the spectrum of present moment thinking, it is the 3 ignorances that initially give rise to ego clinging. The first is ignoring that I am single present moment thinking only. The second is ignoring that my true nature is Buddha. The third is ignoring the law of karma, cause and result. These 3 ignorances are another topic that I will get into a lot of detail on. It is engaging in the first ignorance that most strongly supports the habit of ego clinging. When thinking is focused on oneself in an introspective way, seeking more understanding of self, asking the question of who am I, the conclusion that sentient beings arrive at will always include some degree of ego clinging. But what we actually are is just thinking. All the other attributes and qualities we assign to ourselves are imputed. They are relatively true, yes, as our perceptions and experiences, but none of them actually exist. They are temporary. When we engage with our outer phenomena, it creates something like a feedback loop. The qualities of this feedback loop can vary, anything from extreme suffering to extreme enjoyments. The kinds of experiences we have always depend on the kind of response our thinking engages in. These responses tend to be habitual, and the stronger habits tend to become so automatic that we don't notice them, often to the point of being subconscious. But all of our responses, whether body, speech, or mind, always rely on thinking, either positive or negative. This is what determines the suffering or the enjoyment we experience. Positive thinking leads to happiness and enjoyments, and negative thinking leads to suffering. The main variation is how much of that experience will be immediate. It may be mostly immediate, or it may be mostly postponed, but it will have elements of both. So the thinking is happening. When do you experience the result? It might be right away, or it might not. As soon as we engage in ego clinging, it gives us permission and justification to engage with negative thinking. And the more we engage like this, the harder it becomes to see that the actual result of responding this way will not bring us happiness. It compounds the problem. This is where the feedback produced from thinking will have the same qualities of that thinking. The phenomena has the same qualities as the thinking. And negative thinking will be manifested in experiences as being negative. Negative thinking, negative experiences. So I can actively ignore that I am single present moment thinking only. Instead, my view says that I am truly existing as a permanent entity. There is a me somewhere in here. This me needs protection from suffering. This me also wants and deserves as much happiness as it can find. As I engage with the outer world around me, I have these goals in every moment, and they guide how I make decisions. So when I perceive I am threatened, that would be suffering, I will engage with anger. When I am envious of others' happiness, I will engage in jealousy. I deserve that, they don't. When I perceive an object or experience as the cause of my happiness, I will engage in greed. When I refuse to change or adapt my beliefs, I will engage in pride. When I continue to cling to ego, I am engaging in ignorance. I am ignoring. There is no real ego there. As I respond in these ways, I will cling to my self-identity, ego clinging, more and more, squeezing the phantom I. There must be a me. And I do this because when I don't get what I hoped for, it confirms the outer world is unfriendly and it may attack and challenge me. The outer world is then my adversary. It is filled with people and things that will block me at every turn as I try to connect with happiness and avoid suffering. Over time, I see this pattern again and again. Sound familiar? So, to combat this, I get angry, I get greedy or jealous. I ignore the suffering of others. This is what I see other people doing. And some of them look very successful. Look at them over there. Wow, all that wealth, all that accumulation, all that fame. And when I pursue happiness, I'm competing with those other people. So I have to be aggressive and selfish, or I will lose out. You get that message a lot. And as I experience more and more encounters like this, I become more and more certain that this is the only way I can get what I want. Sometimes when I compete with others, I lose or I get hurt. To avoid this, I cannot be kind or generous to others because there are only winners and losers. The more I engage like this, the stronger that habit becomes. Repetition creates habits. When I have experienced this enough, I won't even consider another approach because the habits of ego clinging and negative thinking are too strong. Now I don't even look for other possibilities because a lifetime of experiences has taught me these lessons again and again. Now the cycle of rebirth gives a larger scope to all of these habits of thinking. And I will talk in a dedicated teaching about this as well. It shows us that it is much more than only one lifetime that produced this habit. We say from beginningless time, I have been cycling through samsara, and you have as well. We've been doing this as sentient beings, clinging to our phantom ego. We are living countless lifetimes as sentient beings with strong ego clinging. It didn't just happen quickly. It is deepening and strengthening this habit until it is automatic. What Buddha taught is that there is a path that takes us beyond this cycle, and it is the gateway to this path known as the Four Noble Truths of the Enlightened. So that concludes my little talk today about ego clinging. And just as sort of a foreshadowing, this term will arise again and again, both in teaching the principles and in discussing real-life applications of how you can use this information in everyday activities, in your everyday contemplations, and virtually any other kind of personal reflection you might want to do. So I hope this has been beneficial, and I will see you very soon. Thank you.